I'm Israel Owolabi. Hi, everyone. I'm Israel Owolabi from Marketer, but you can call me Izzy today. I've been on Marketer for just over a year, working as an SDR as part of the business development function here at Marketer. And it's great to have you all here today for another live stream. We've got a fantastic panel lined up from Moss, Transact Pay, and MasterCard to explore the evolution of corporate spend management. We'll be diving into why modern solutions go far beyond traditional expense tracking and how they are helping companies boost financial efficiency, enhance visibility across teams, and create user-friendly experiences that employees want to engage with. We'll also tackle some big questions such as how do you strike the right balance between flexibility and control? And how do you effectively manage multi-currency and multi-jurisdiction spending? This is a live session, so don't be shy to drop any questions in the chat as we go. So let's jump in. And I guess starting with Reynold, we'd like you all to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about yourself and your current role and your experience today. So Reynold, would you like to kick things off?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Israel, and thank you for organizing this webinar. So I'm Reynold. I'm based in Frankfurt, and I lead business development for corporate solutions for Central Europe at MasterCard. About 2 years with MasterCard now, but 20 years this year in the card payments industry. And I specialize in the B2B spend, which is also our topic today. So I'm really excited to discuss spend management and how this is evolving with all you. Thank you. I give then to Aaron further.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Aaron Carpenter. I'm the CEO of Transact Pay, formerly Transact Payments. We're an EMI that's licensed out of Gibraltar and Malta, so we serviced it in the UK and Europe. Personally, I've been with Transact for 6 years, started as a Chief Operating Officer, then had a brief secondment into Malta to set the post-Brexit license up, which was lots of fun, and came back to Gibraltar about 3 years ago to take over the group. So very, very pleased to be here today.
Then maybe I can close it up. So my name is Ante. I'm founder and CEO of Moss. We are a spend management solution, so it fits really well into the story here. I hope I can contribute quite a bit. We are based in Germany, but we serve the European market. We are partnering with both MasterCard as well as Transact Pay and Marketer. Sorry, all three. So it's a very exciting also combination here from our perspective. We do hold an e-money license in Germany, but we also serve the UK market. That's why issuing kind of is equally a theme. And yeah, I'm super excited.
Amazing. Thank you so much, all of you. Great introductions. And I guess we have an ecosystem of partners represented here today. And I guess could we all spend a moment just discussing the role each of you plays when issuing cards for spend management solutions? And I guess starting with Ante, since you're the last one to go previously.
Sure. Happy to. So as we serve more than just EEA, we basically have two setups. So when it comes down to card issuing, we are our own issuer, e-money license under BaFin. And then on top, we partner with Transact Pay for the issuing in the UK. Everything that's connected with authorizations and authorizing transactions, we partner with Marketer. And then MasterCard is our scheme across all of the geographies that we operate. So MasterCard is our partner on settlement side and connecting kind of the spenders, with the parties they buy from.
Amazing. And Aaron, could you touch upon, I guess, the role that cards play in spend management solutions as well?
Sure. So in the industry term for us is a bin sponsor, and for those of us that aren't in cards every day, what that really means is that we provide access to the scheme rails, MasterCard in this instance, for those fintechs that are not at that point in time principal members or otherwise have access. Our role there will be we'll help, we'll consult very closely with the customer in order to devise the card program. We'll make the applications in the scheme, and then we'll retain responsibility really for ensuring that program is run in accordance with the scheme rules, and in some instances the regulatory rules as well, depending on the license status of our customer. we've of course got Vivante, but both in Europe and UK and in different ways. And I think they're a really good example of how, very often our customers will move from the process themselves, and in some jurisdictions carry on and get their own licenses, and then potentially continue to work for us in others.
Amazing. And Reynolds, just to round things up.
Yes, of course. So, I mean, as Ante and Aaron mentioned, MasterCard provides a network. And so as a global payment network, we need to make sure that things are secure and scalable, of course. So you can imagine thousands of financial institutions, banks, software providers, financial services providers. So all these entities around the globe, they need some kind of glue to stay all together and some kind of standardization in order to make sure that data is flowing in a way that it can be processed very quickly and accurately. So this is what MasterCard is basically offering, bringing all these different partners together with the ultimate benefit of the end user at the end of the day, who needs to have much faster processes, much easier spend reports, let's say.
Yes, definitely. And I guess speaking on the subject of spend management, we'll be keen to kind of dive into the foundations of spend management. And I guess the $1 million question is kind of what's the difference between spend management versus expense management? Because I feel like a lot of people get the two confused. So this is a question open to the room, to which everyone would like to kind of answer the question in terms of the difference between spend management and expense management, and essentially why have we moved beyond traditional expense tracking?
Happy to kick it off.
Sure.
Antia, I think you are on mute.
Yes, but Reynolds, please, you go first.
Okay.
Please.
Thank you. So, well, what I would say is two words. So reactive and proactive, right? So we have expense management as we know it from before, which is a reactive process, right? So you first spend as an employee of a company, and then you enter the process of reconciliation with the finance teams, with the procurement, and this always requires more effort. So moving from an expense management to a spend management, you become more proactive as a business, and making sure that you have real-time visibility, making sure you have set controls in place before a spend is triggered. Then you are in a much better position to digitalize, but also to control and to reconcile in the later stages of such processes. So yeah. Proactive better than reactive, I would say.
Definitely so. I guess, Aaron, do you want to touch on that or add anything to that?
I'm very conscious, but I've got Ante sat in another window. This is very much your bag, so I'll let you go first if that's okay.
Definitely, go on.
Of course. Yeah, it's a much bigger scope. So 100% from reactive to proactive, 100% right, and then plus this much bigger scope. So whilst companies first try to fix the issue of travelers, they got to learn that they have the same issue on other ends. So what we as a solution are doing, and some players, some other players as well, is orchestrate this whole flow of spending money, not just for travelers, not just for employees, but for the whole company. And there is a lot more. It's pretty interesting because there is a lot more involvement of finance and other types of touch points than people think. Yeah. So if we just take a simple item, your company wants to contract a freelancer, yeah, for in marketing. It sounds like a trivial thing. Yeah, you get an invoice, you have to pay for the invoice, but actually there is a process before and after. People align on, do we actually have the budget to contract? Then they need to attach the contracts or save the contract somewhere, yeah, so they can reconcile. They have to check the first invoice that comes in. They have to see, what is on there. Is it what we agreed? Is it the scope of work? Is it the hours? Later on, someone needs to kind of funnel this transaction amongst hundreds and thousands others into the workflow of payments. And then there is the whole accounting controlling process of extracting the data, categorizing, putting in the books, closing the books at the end of the month. So it's really a big journey. And the biggest switch from expend to spend was this change from thinking about my employee needs to buy something, to I have to orchestrate all of the spending in my business.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that explanation, Ante. And I guess as well, following on from what you just spoke about, how do spend management systems and processes help transform a company's financials efficiency, like you mentioned, in terms of finance teams?
Yeah. So ultimately, and I can speak best for SMBs. Yeah. And I think there is a huge difference between corporates that invested a lot of money into their ERPs and constantly build workflows, yeah, to tailor their needs. It's very different from the big group of SMBs that we see in Europe and outside of Europe. And the main problem for those SMBs is that most steps of the work that I described before, they have orchestrated in a super manual way. And the manual leads to inefficiency. Yeah. No matter how you do it. So the big change is bringing this workflow into one digital journey, and making sure that it's as automated as possible. Yeah. Goes as far as, machine learning models, AI automation, but it can also go to rule-based things where a company decides that, for example, a transaction of a specific value needs to be approved by person X, yeah, maybe on top of person Y. And all of those automations where you don't have to go back, don't have to do manual steps, they just help massively increase the efficiency of doing business, yeah, and running finance. And this is where how we see this transformation enabling finance teams, yeah, and becoming more efficient. And maybe there was a question I think raised before for the audience. So so the very often finance had to deal with things after the fact. Yeah, we are again in the reactive. Yeah, so specific teams have spent money and they get invoices, receipts, whatever, card transactions, and now finance kind of sees this for the first time. It's a horrible feeling. Yeah, just think about if you're a parent, you have your kids and then you only learn all the stuff after they have done it. Yeah, the good stuff and the bad stuff. It's like, it's way too late. You want to be more in control. So this gaining more control and being pulled much earlier in the journey is a necessity for finance team to operate in a good way. And this is also why it spans into procurement flows. For example, you can have a flow where the team needs to request stuff they want to buy. Yeah, and they can attach the contract, in the same example of the freelancer, they can attach the contract, and now finance knows that in the future there will be this spending, it's approved, it's compliant, it's a very different, situation. Yeah, this is maybe the short answer to how it can touch also procurement.
Thank you so much, Ante. And I guess following up from that as well, just to conclude, I guess what have you seen in terms of as companies start to grow and scale, and also Reynolds, you can speak on this as well. What are some common pitfalls they encounter when trying to, I guess, implement a spend management system or upgrade the existing spend management system?
Mm-hmm.
You want to go first, Reynolds?
Yes, I can go first. Thanks. And just to add to the previous question and to start from that one. So. Yes, procurement and financial teams, let's say finance teams, depending on what we refer to, if it is a treasury team for larger businesses, or if it is just the accounting team. So there is very often a lot of discrepancy, and there is an increased cost, especially for low volume spend that businesses are creating by having certain processes in place. The challenge is how to orchestrate the different tools that a business could use in order to improve such processes. So it's about an orchestration question, and not so much about finding one solution that can do everything. And if we consider, for example, small payments that are going with one purchase to one supplier or twice per year, just onboarding such suppliers, let's say the agency, as Ante mentioned before, that takes really a lot of cost. from the company creates a lot of costs, and usually businesses are not very good in measuring that cost. So the time that people are spending on the system, but also communicating with each other to make the data available for onboarding a supplier, for sharing the contract, for making the request, for clarifying, etc. This is a lot of effort. So we would say just for onboarding a supplier, a business would need like 500 to 1,000 euro. Let's just to put it on a frame. So by just purchasing something small from one supplier, you just double the cost, or you increase the cost by 20%. So that should be avoided in general. And for bigger businesses, of course, it's a matter of thinking how where the processes are taking place. So usually big businesses have a larger ERP system, but then they have some satellite systems like a procure-to-pay solution, where the whole process starts. Now, other businesses might have always a requirement that a PO, a purchase order, is always requested. Now, certain rules have been put in place by considering older solutions. Today, we have much better capabilities, so a business should be thinking of those processes and how to bring more efficiency, because new solutions are there.
Thanks for that, Reynolds. Andy, do you want to close off with that, or is there anything else you want to touch upon?
No, I think super clear. What we see in our customer feedback and basis, small companies typically can handle the things easily because they have few transactions. It could be up to 5 FTE, up to 10 FTE, and the new offerings of neobanks in business are pretty strong. Yeah, so this can help them, digitize the small workloads. Changes fundamentally when they become bigger, when they have professional finance teams, when they grow into a couple of hundred FTE, and then as they do that, they typically need to get to a more sophisticated solution that can cater more depth, that can cater more automation. Ideally, they can connect some of the dots, so they basically get rid of maybe 2 single point solutions and run one powerful solutions, because it's easier, to administer, to onboard new employees, to offboard employees. So there is this whole powerful kind of set of having like a great solution to serve all of it. But then as they grow more, if they scale, then suddenly that is not good enough. And then we're exactly what Renaud described, and we observed the same thing. So we had clients that grew to public companies and beyond. And whilst initially they maybe used MOS for everything they do, then later on it became more relevant for specific functions, for specific markets, for, just because of the sheer scale. And this is the journey, from tiny, don't need anything, to small and medium, where I need like one very powerful solution that automates all of it, to again a bit more fragmented as they become much bigger.
Brilliant. And I guess shifting onto that kind of product and platform capabilities, specifically around MOS, Ante, how does the MOS solution help businesses gain more granular visibility into, I guess, interdepartmental solutions around corporate card spending, and why is that important?
Yeah, so the main idea is bring everything on one platform. That's kind of like the number one, because you have people who spend money. They need to buy stuff. You cannot exclude them. You cannot say you will not spend money anymore. It's not possible. They have to travel. They have marketing budgets. They have other stuff. They maybe have stuff for the office. So they need a vehicle how they can get the job done easily. But then on top, in B2B, you cannot like buy stuff and throw away the receipt. It's just not how it works. Everything needs to be administered. Like the whole GDP of Europe or globally in B2B needs administration. Everything. That doesn't matter. Even 1 penny, 1 cent spent will have to be administered. So what it needs now is this platform that can connect all of those dots, that can give you the degree of digitization, the degree of automation, the transparency, the visibility, so that you can run the whole job. You can basically get all of it done. And now, specifically thinking about cards are tricky. That's also why cards are exciting, have been exciting for us, but it's also exciting for MasterCard to transact. They are so commonly used. A scheme like MasterCard is so commonly offered that you actually can run, and use this payment instrument almost like globally, or pretty much globally. Then on top, as the economy is becoming more and more digital and more online in services and products, also the adoption is kind of getting more like the acceptance becoming more bigger. You can buy almost any software now with a card. Yeah, so it's just a very predominant payment instrument. But there is this one pain that companies have. You have a limit on the card, and then people can use it. Yeah, it's very different from I have my access to my bank account. It's only finance, and I only make a payment if it's correct. Yeah, so you to give trust, you empower other people, and you trust other people. So having great mechanisms about how to increase this transparency, how to manage controls, all of these elements is a big topic. And here the industry had like a great wave of disruption, in the last 5-7 years, that makes it possible.
Thanks for that, Ante. And I guess, Reynold, I guess touching on a point, I guess what Ante mentioned in terms of receipts as well. How critical is a mobile-first solution with instant, receipt capture for expense management workflows? Like, how important is it to make sure you're capturing receipts and implementing that into workflows?
Mm-hmm. Well, mobile-first solution, how important? I would say it's not about so much how important it is, but because it is the only way, I would say, in order to move forward. So it's there is no alternative from my perspective on that. Yeah. So in order to have the most benefits of spend management, you need to leave this proactiveness that spend management solutions offer, right? So being proactive, that would mean that at the moment when a business traveler pays for a taxi, before exiting the taxi, right, being able to get a notification that I paid something, so I don't forget my receipt, and then I can scan the receipt. So when I'm back from my trip, I can just click submit and my expense report is done. So I don't spend unnecessary time when I'm back from a trip. Or if we move it to the B2B part, meaning outside of the travel, it's also very important to be able to act immediately. So for example, if an employee is asking for a spend limit, Ante just mentioned this control and the ability to trust, to provide flexibility, but of course, on the other hand, to stay in control as a finance team, as a procurement team. So having mobile solutions that are very much expanded within the process of the organization, you can imagine that the supervisor of this employee can, within seconds, approve a spend limit that the employee can then spend for the certain business. And we do see this, especially with smaller businesses today, spreading this credit line across the employees to make the spends provide a great flexibility and reduces extremely the costing behind. So you need mobile solutions not only to do the payment, but also to facilitate the process. So it's really one way to becoming more digital as a business.
Yeah, definitely so. Definitely so. And I guess moving on to Aaron, I guess in terms of the global corporate spend that we see, especially around spend management, how do solutions solve multi-currency and multi-jurisdiction challenges that they might face?
I think we've got to consider where we're coming from, haven't we? Which is, before, cards were using in perhaps the way they are today, and even today, the amount of cross-border payments made by businesses by SWIFT, for example, is still huge. It's in the trillions of dollars by best estimation, right? I think 30-point-something trillion in 2023. And I think any of us that have to make those payments with any degree of regularity know how painful it can be. So when we take a look at even something that might sound as simple as a card with local currency settlement options available, we reduce FX exposure, we increase acceptance, we completely avoid that situation where we don't know where in the chain of correspondent banks that payment is at any given time. And for most of us and our suppliers, that's incredibly important. But in certain industries like supply chain finance, for example, that's absolutely essential. It's a service that people are paying for. So, I think that cards play an absolutely essential role in that and actually address, to my mind, some of the most critical issues that exist with non-card transfers at the moment.
Thanks for that, Aaron. And I guess quickly pivoting on to, I guess, we have three great businesses here today, and we're all connected, obviously through the glorious tool that we call APIs. And it'd be good to kind of touch upon how all of us are interconnected, starting with yourself, Aaron, in terms of integrations and ecosystem partners. How do we all interact in terms of Transact Pay?
So we're kind of unique here, actually, in terms of that. Due to our business model, we benefit indirectly from that API connectivity, because as Ante knows, it's our program managers that form together with Marqeta and other processors as a technological hub. It's them that are our API connection. So for us, where we benefit from it is just being a party to our ecosystem and I guess almost playing a consultative role of our program managers and customers in terms of ensuring that they're aware of the variety of API-based services that are available to solve those challenges that they have.
Great. Reynolds, you want to speak about that as well?
Yes, well, the APIs, it's again the future. There are still certain processes that are running on batch today. These are historically developed, and if we consider thousands of different members in such an ecosystem around the globe, communicating today is almost not possible to switch immediately to such solutions. But important is that they are available, and then there are the right incentives in place to move into more extended use of APIs. So if we are talking about real-time data authorization and how you can provide this information to the end user, it's only possible through the consumption of APIs. And we do see this today, that this enjoys a lot of adoption because real-time data are going to make the difference in order to, and again, touching upon that proactiveness of the spend management. So in order to be able to make decisions either on the spot as an employee who makes the spend, or as a business traveler, or as a system, if you like, because certain rules can be programmed in the background and are today programmed. You need this information, and that is only possible if the right APIs are in place. MasterCard does provide certain APIs to connect, and has made provides the information very freely for those players that are innovating in the market and that are building up such interfaces in order to bring these APIs then into the use case and to the end user.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And Ante, I guess, as an API first platform that MOS is, how do you incorporate APIs? And I guess it's also as well to elaborate on that, many businesses already use legacy or ERP systems or accounting softwares. How do you, I guess, convince the finance teams or the wider businesses itself to adopt a new tool or platform like MOS?
Yeah, so I think we it was a great answer already on the infrastructure side. So couldn't agree more. And payment flows are complex. It's almost impossible to not work with multiple parties. And then the scale is so big that it's also almost impossible to not work with integrations and APIs. We're speaking thousands of transactions, or even many more. Yeah, it could be millions in a day. Yeah, so it's definitely. On the infrastructure side, I think it's clear. On the spend side, there is an expectation from customers to seamlessly connect to their accounting and finance software. Could be an ERP, could also be an accounting tool, and so we do that because it's expected, it's needed. It's the only way you can ensure a very seamless flow, including the bookkeeping and taxes and month-end closing. So I would say yes, absolutely mission critical. It's not entirely easy because different customers use the different systems. Yeah, so the range of integrations is not just one; it's rather a bigger, a larger amount, and they have to be maintained. They need to constantly work. Yeah, there are changes in between, so it's definitely an effort to do this really well. But for us, it's mission critical.
Yeah, agreed. And Aaron, I guess from TP's point of view, How do you see specifically cards shaping spend management space? And have you seen any emerging trends that you might want to share or touch upon?
I mean, we're touch biased, I guess, given what our business model is. But no, I mean, it's, to my mind, it's pretty clear that cards have played a fairly significant role in influencing the sector and will continue to do so. And I think if we go back to maybe in the top of the conversation, both Renaud and Ante, I think both mentioned the two key reasons why I think cards will continue to play in that role. Number one is the availability of the data related to those transactions and the granularity. And the accessibility of that data that benefits finance teams for a range of different reasons, but also the configurability of the card as the payment instrument that provides that security and protection that we spoke about. I think, if I was to pick out one trend that over the past few years we've seen have a real large impact, it'd probably be one-time use virtual cards. In, say, the OTA sector is a great example of how that's been used incredibly effectively. And I'm sure that, when we consider any kind of innovative businesses that are operating in this space today, I'm sure they'll only find more and more clever uses of the card to solve those problems that the finance teams are experiencing.
Agreed.
And maybe just to add on that, in terms of trends, and I completely agree, Aaron, on what you mentioned. So we need to think about the card payments as a very dynamic and completely digital, let's say, solution, right? So since it is digital from the beginning of the life cycle to the end, a virtual card can be programmed, can be handled in ways that the static bank accounts cannot be handled, right? So there are certain solutions out there, of course, also with bank accounts now. We do see innovation, but when it comes to the card, it provides this flexibility that you can do a lot in order to plan when it comes to certain processes. So what we see as a big trend at the moment is that embedded finance in terms of cards is taking more and more attention at the moment. And embedded finance for cards would mean not just providing data to the CRP systems or procure-to-pay systems or accounting system, if you like, but also making cards available in such systems. So this is more or less the newer or the newest innovation in the market. So getting virtual cards for certain payments directly on the systems that many employees are using today, this really solves for certain challenges and also enables other use cases like what we call usually straight-through processing. So you process a transaction based on a card, but you never see the card. You never need to type the card number anywhere. And these are the new things that are happening out there that are taking more and more attention from businesses.
Interesting. And I guess back to you, Aaron. How do you see schemes and issuers evolving over the next few years to better support corporate spend programs?
So I'll focus on the issuer, given I'm sure Renaud has some comments on the scheme side. I mean, it's a continuation of something I think is hugely important, which is if you're going to be an issuer or being a sponsor, I think it's important that it's acknowledged that you need to be a strategic partner of your customers. If you are going to enable a program, particularly very often, that program manager is potentially launching a business for the first time in that sector. They might be starting from ground zero and building from there. I think that our the consultative services we have to provide to ensure that they navigate what's a complex card scheme and regulatory environment is hugely important to make sure that we enable them to go forward and do what they do really well, which is solve problems in the sector, but they do it in a way that has longevity because it's been configured in a, let's say, a regulatory robust fashion. So and in order to do that, frankly, we need to make sure that we stay abreast of the developments in these sectors. Otherwise, the consultative services that we're able to provide at the outset are going to be lacking. And ultimately, I think that's probably the most important thing we can do to stay relevant and stay stay valuable in the ecosystem.
Amazing. And Reynolds as well. I know you previously touched upon trends that you're seeing in terms of the embedded finance space. Do you have any, I guess, success stories or innovations that Mastercard is working on to reduce friction in the global corporate payments space?
Yes. So where this journey is going in terms of card payments, I think we will see a lot of innovation coming, but we have to start to think about the card in different ways. So before, it was just a means to make sure that some additional data are coming back to the business. Today, that remains still valid. It's just made better, faster, richer, let's say. But there are also other things that card payments are bringing with them. So, for example, many businesses use card payments for securing additional liquidity or freeing up liquidity, if you like, right? So when it comes to working capital management, card is a great tool, among others. Or when it comes to controlling maverick buying, as a procurement specialist would say, right? So making sure that you know where your employees are spending and for what they are spending, and having this visibility, right? So all these different areas are going to gain more and more importance. Right, and indeed, we need open-mindedness in the market. So businesses need to spend a little bit of time to get to know such solutions and to link them to their everyday processes and to see how that would help. But all in all, I think there will be quite some innovation coming in the market in the next years.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Thanks for that, Reynolds. And I guess moving on to Ante, as a program manager that Moss is, which elements are the most complex to navigate as a program manager, would you say?
Program manager, now you have to help me. I think program manager is actually Marqeta together with Transact Pay for the UK, and then we run our in-house issuing. Yeah, so we have our so we run kind of our own issuing platform. And in this case, there is there is the compliance with local regulation. In this case, it's mainly Germany and our passporting markets, active and passive, which is the most important point in the whole flow. And then it's of course keeping the process, basically error-free floating, right? So it's moving money. Yeah, you can imagine that the tolerance for mistakes for a customer that tops up a wallet, for example, or has certain spending, there is absolutely 0.0% tolerance. So these are kind of like the challenges, complexities to make sure that this is intact. Requires a really good ledger system. Requires really good information exchange with other partners. So we settle on a daily basis with Mastercard. So like big reports get exchanged, get reconciled. We get on top reports from Marqeta. There is a lot happening in the background, just so that in the foreground, in the front, you see virtual physical cards in like huge amounts and can do with them whatever you want. Yeah, that's kind of that's what the customer sees. They can set limits, they can set single purchase cards, recurring cards. They can get physical, they can get virtual into wallets. All combinations almost are possible. And the only thing they want is they want the payment flow to work when they need it. Yeah, when they want it to work, when they need to rent a car, it's a disaster if your car doesn't work. But they also want it to work when they have a meta charge of 100K for the next kind of bigger budget. Yeah. So like the variation of needs can be very big.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks for that. Thanks for the answer. And I guess moving on to yourself, Reynolds. I know you at the beginning of the live stream you touched upon reactive and predictive. In terms of, I guess, the future of spend management, do you see it moving more from reactive to predictive? And how do you see, I guess, AI also coming into this space?
Yes, definitely. we are becoming more and more proactive, of course, because this is a need, first of all, and there is also lots of support from what is generally happening out there, meaning many companies are finding themselves in a transformation project. So they try to become more digital, more efficient, etc. So when businesses are rethinking their operating model, then it's the best time to touch the processes and automate whatever is possible to increase the efficiency as much as possible. So there will be a very strong push as businesses digitalize themselves. There will be a strong push to become more and more proactive, consuming data, making use of real-time authorization, providing more flexibility, as we said before, to the employees, but without losing control in the background. So this is definitely happening. And as we also mentioned already, I mean, based on this information that is becoming instantly available and with certain richness, you are able as an employee, as a person to make decisions, but also you can let the machines make such decisions. So AI, not only it's becoming more and more smart as a solution itself, but if you have the data in real time and in a certain richness, of course, is the only way. The question is how fast, and can one keep up with this speed? Because this whole thing is moving exponentially, and the idea is that when the business is in a transformation project, are they mature enough and are they bold enough when they touch the processes and make such changes? That's the only question, but there is no question that we are going to become more and more proactive.
Agreed. And Ante, I guess, do most incorporate AI in your current spends management platform? And also, as I'll touch on AI, specifically generative AI, how do you see that, I guess, playing a role in spends management in the next 2-3 years? And, similar to what Reynolds said, do you see it replaces some manual decision-making processes?
Yeah, so 100%. It's a huge topic. I would frame it kind of, while the first wave was let's create a workflow, a digital workflow. The next wave is how can we automate the workflow, and then the next wave is what are kind of more predictive, smarter actions, like insights, actions on the go, and everything around automating workflow, I think, is pretty developed already. So at least in our case, we have done a ton. It's mainly around how can I extract information from documents? How can I predict certain bookings based on past behavior? How can I, for example, predict the majority of all of the accounting categories so no one needs to actually do something? You know it because you have seen the past transactions and you're very, very certain, where this belongs to. So all of this, so the flows to automate are heavily in use already and pretty advanced. Now with LLM, it's more new, it's more avant-garde, and the range of application is big. So we see, things we experiment with and have launched also customer facing are things like extract information from receipts, and with this be able to add an additional layer, a layer of, for example, cost splitting, of recognizing participants, of comparing kind of the list of participants to the expense policy, building getting certain controlling mechanisms in place to flag, being able to identify that an IBAN maybe has changed versus prior bookings for the same. And now in this context, and also maybe the content of the invoice is very different. So you get kind of like a warning that you have to double check. It might also be fraud. So it's a very big spectrum. I would say it's in the beginning, still in the early days, but it's inevitable. Yeah, it's the only way how you'll be able to satisfy customer needs in 5 years from now.
Definitely. And Aaron, I guess just to summarize, is there anything else you want to touch upon in terms of AI? And interestingly enough, do Transact Pay use AI in your systems, as a BIN sponsor?
We do. It's largely on the transaction monitoring side, fraud prevention and so forth. But I think, some of the points Anthony made there are resonate with us quite a bit. From the other side of the table, I think about some of the digitalization we're going through at the moment, and I'm very mindful of what we're doing today. Feels like it's definitely step one of what we'll be doing in the coming years. But it's definitely something that I would say it's fairly nascent for us in the way that we're utilizing it. But particularly as we roll out some of our new product offering, there's going to be a lot more utilization of those programs.
Brilliant. I guess a quick pivot in terms of you guys' personal career and personal reflections. All of you, you've had an extended, respectable career for several years, and as someone quite, new to the industry and new to, I guess, the payments and fintech industry. I wanted to dive into the panel's career journeys today. We've got Reynolds, you've been in the industry for 20 years, and Aaron and Ante, who are co-founders and CEOs. I guess specifically, Ante, what in your life, I guess, led to where you are today and in creating Moss, essentially? What was the aha moment that allowed you to say, yes, let's create Moss and expand from there? You're on mute, Ante.
Sorry. There are two things that kind of are the baseline of everything, and then there was a point in time that triggered the story for Moss, yeah. But the two points that were part of life that shaped kind of this decision was, one, entrepreneurship. So just being super excited about thinking about building products, servicing customers, building companies, processes. It's a huge pain, but it's a gigantic gain. And this is what kind of triggered me very early in my career. And the second piece is that finance was also always part of my educational/professional life. So I did this master in finance. I spent some time in consulting, had like finance focus, was a finance co-responsible in the first company I built. So there was always this component of finance as part of the career. And now the point where we for the first time got this idea for Moss was reflected on our prior company. We reflected on some of the challenges we had, and we reflected that actually running the operational finance in a young company that we were doing 20 million revenue at the time, just 2 years old, so very fast scaling, was effectively a nightmare. Yeah, so we branded this, as this was the nightmare experience, and this triggered the question of why. So why was this the nightmare? It's like a standard thing, like it's every company has to do it. There is so much talent out there, smart people. And this one, when we figured that in this disruptive process, not much has changed, for finance in the last 10, 15 years. Most has happened on the backbone of like very early software companies, on the ERP side, accounting side. We would call it legacy software, whilst the companies changed a lot, and everything around them changed a lot. And this gave us the starting point to paint like a new vision, for finance.
That's great to hear. And I guess moving on to Aaron as well, you mentioned you was a COO and then pivoted to, got promoted to CEO. I'd love to learn about your career path and how you ended up as the CEO of TransactPay.
Yeah, sure. Mine's a little bit random, I guess. So I was a private practice lawyer for quite a few years in the commercial and corporate space. And then a move to Gibraltar found that I started specializing in regulated sectors that were primarily payments and online gambling. The two tend to go together in those spaces quite regularly because of the payment challenges that gambling companies often experience. So after spending quite a bit of time focusing on kind of regulatory advice, M&A, I decided to start a consultancy, which, if I'm honest, was partly driven by the desire to work a little bit less and spend a bit more time outside of work. Didn't quite work out that way, and ended up advising a business that subsequently I moved into. And that business taught me an awful lot about the payment sector, particularly some of the challenges, which led to me moving across to the COO role in Transact Payments. So definitely not a traditional role into COO, not a technology background, not an operations background, but it's been an interesting journey and definitely in a sector that I definitely feel at home at now.
Very, very interesting career route, and I guess everyone has their own different career journeys in terms of how they started and when they ended up and where they are now, I guess. So I guess just to finish off, Reynolds, would you like to touch upon your a long 20-year career?
Yes, sure.
And
Sure.
kind of
Not so exciting as Aaron and Ante, but my background is more in engineering, and I must say I joined payments in the start of my professional career, and when I came across the card payments, it was a really interesting combination between finance and technology. It's not the hardcore finance, like finance teams would experience it, and there is a lot of technology on that, and from different perspectives. So I've moved from service providers with regards to ATMs and POS, providing these machines and the technology to banks, to Scheme Now, to processors. So I've seen payments from every perspective, I must say. And as I have experience from many of people within my network, once in payment, always in the payments world. So it's just a really exciting world, and you are always working with very exciting companies, very exciting and smart people, and it keeps evolving all the time. So it never gets boring.
Yeah, I can definitely agree. I'm on in payments right now. And I guess to all the panelists, starting with yourself, Ante, looking back at the start of your careers, I know, Ante, you're more entrepreneurial, but was there a moment or decision that really set you on the path to working in tech or payments? You touched upon co-founding businesses and, coming from, doing your masters as well. What was that point that you say, set you on that path to tech or payments?
Yeah, so honestly, with payments, there was less of a connection. Yeah, like super honest. We stumbled into payments because we wanted to solve a certain pain point around finance, and it's so connected. I think this is the challenge that we see right now. Banks do kind of banking products and financial products and services, and accounting software, ERPs, and other software businesses focus on the workflow. But honestly, in life, it's connected. Like people need to orchestrate the workflow and they have to make the payments. It's like this one journey. There is no difference. So this is how I stumbled into payments, trying to solve the workflow, and then effectively realize we need also payments. But I agree with what Aaron said. It's an industry that needs to be learned and understood first, especially because of its regulation. Yeah, it's a big heavy lift. And it's mission critical to do it right, and that's something I think we underestimated, and most people underestimate, I would say.
Aaron, do you want to speak more about, I guess, that as well in terms of what set you on the path to fintech and payments as well? I know you started off as a lawyer, ended up as COO, so quite an interesting journey.
Yeah, sure, and to be honest, it's not dissimilar to Ante in a certain way, because it didn't take long, particularly once I moved into more regulated sectors, even on the advisory side, to realize that payments is a consistent problem for a lot of businesses, which is why we're all here, right? My firm view was that there were lots of problems to solve, which means there's lots of opportunity for businesses to be developed. Moss being a great example of that. So, and I feel that's still the case. As a BIN sponsor, we see really, really cool, innovative business models coming through on a frequent basis, and being just a small part of solving those problems is something that really has always interested me and continues to do so.
And Randall, would you like to round up that?
Yes, sure. I mean, payment at the end of the day is a commodity. It usually takes place at the end of the process chain, so to say. But in order to reach that point, you need to pass through different gates, as it was mentioned already, right? So you have different challenges, and depending on how you would then facilitate the payment, it defines how other things can be done or should be done before that. So I think it will be an exciting journey. We will see lots of things happening, lots of innovation, and yes, payment remained really very interesting because they have this power to define what happens in the beginning of the process, be it a business travel spend, be it a procurement spend, be it a treasury-led challenge. So at the end of the day, it has to be attached to the processes, and everything we design and we implement, it has to have this, focus on the end user. If these services then bring value to the end user, it's definitely the right thing to do.
Definitely agree with that. And I guess, specifically to Aaron and Ante, it's not every day you get to speak to two CEOs. But have there been, any mentors or pivotal experiences in your, career journey that kind of shaped your leadership style today? And how would you describe your leadership style as a CEO? Start with Aaron, I guess.
I'm not sure I want to answer the second part of that question, but that's probably best answered by some of the team. But no, look, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but I generally feel that what has absolutely shaped my career more has been the challenging times. Perhaps it's just me, and perhaps I'm a touch stubborn, but I tend to learn far more from what I get wrong than what I get right. And I'm a firm believer, but hopefully not getting burned, but certainly being close to the fire at some point in your early career can really pay dividends later on. You learn some great lessons from that. And I've been lucky to work with some good executives and mentors throughout the years. But I wouldn't want to mention anyone in particular for fear of upsetting anyone else. But no, I think having people that you can look to and take guidance from, and also not being afraid of your mistakes and absolutely learning from them, and the two key points for me.
Mm-hmm. And Ante, anything you want to touch upon that as well?
Yeah. So there is one interesting story. So I attended a conference once with a big famous US fund, and they have a theory around crucible moments. Could also translate into your question with pivotal moments. And then I was thinking a lot about it and realized that is actually true. So seeing in your company, seeing in your team, in your staff, seeing in your product, like can be across a range of things, as what once you discover something, a great opportunity, do you actually turn it into a crucible moment that shapes the future in a very different way from you expected, or do you maybe don't recognize in this moment and it just floats away? And very often people are dragged in the daily doing, so they don't have the time and the headspace for the crucible moment. Launching Moss was one of the biggest crucible moments for me in life, right? Because you decided to throw away your career and high pay and everything to start from zero, take all the risk, And of course, down the road of building the company, there were many more, some bigger, some smaller, and I think it's definitely like very, very important learning for me that trying to discover those, being pretty open-eyed to discover those it can have a gigantic impact on your future.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that, Ante. Very, very interesting take on crucible moments. And I guess with Reynolds as well. Looking back on your career, what's something you now know about this industry that you wish you knew earlier in your career?
Oh, good question. Well, the truth is, I've wished myself many, many times that the things could progress a little bit faster when it comes to adopting new technology, right? But I think it's not only in this industry. This is true in every industry. So I must say there are things that have moved now in this last 20 years very quickly. But there are also other things that remain still there. And it will take some time until we see changes. But all in all, I do see lots of impact from this consumerization, I would say, trend of the business commercial payment processes, etc. So it's becoming more and more interesting because what we see on our private life is now touching also our business-related processes with regards to payments, and this makes it really interesting. But in general, I wouldn't change also anything. It has been quite exciting these last 20 years.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess for you as well, Aaron, what's something you now know about the industry that you wish you knew earlier in your career? You know, as someone that likes to learn from experiences and mistakes.
I think potentially it become far more aware of the environmental factors that are constantly shifting, and of which, you know, in our position, you're not always in control of. So, but always must be doing your best to kind of foresee what's around the corner, because the sands do shift. They do shift regularly, not just in regulation, but in policy and the scheme rules and so on. And, you know, you've got to move with those. And if you're not doing your best to be one step ahead, it's an awful lot more difficult to, you know, make changes to your model post one of those environmental risks crystallizing.
Yeah. And Ante, I guess we're going to finalize that.
Not much to add, honestly. Yeah, this agility is number one to everything, right? That's kind of it's changing so fast and moving so fast. Everything being agile and you know, organizing the company in an agile way is the only way how to succeed.
And I guess just to round up, starting with you, Ante, as well. What advice would you give someone just starting out in fintech or in financial operations or in tech in general who wants to make an impact in this sector?
Yeah, if you want to run regulated services, here is the whole group of partners. So it's like at small scale, it's just not economically viable and is not feasible. So if you plan on running regulated services offering, you will need to partner early, choose your partners wisely, plan in some more budget, some more time, because it's a complex industry. And this is going to increase your chance of success very significantly. The ones who try to kick it off with their own licensing and other projects typically struggle for years, and that's why I would recommend that.
Aaron?
I think Ante's just given the bin sponsor sales pitch almost, so I'm I very inclined to agree. It's complex, as you mentioned. It's a landscape that takes a lot of navigation, and choosing those right partners is absolutely essential.
And I guess Brendel is a roundup and the last comment of this live stream.
I cannot agree more with what was already said. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, partnering is the best way to go forward, to learn, etc. And even later on, it's not about cooperation or competition. It's sometimes about co-opetition and working together and bringing value to the end user. So, I mean, all we hear in this call represent companies that make things as easy as possible to work with us. And this is definitely a fact. So I can only encourage everyone that is interested to bring such services in the market to get in touch and be courageous and have the end user always in mind.
Couldn't agree more. Well, thank you everyone for your time today. Thank you, Reynolds, Aaron, and Ante for your time. Really appreciate your time today. This was a great live stream, very insightful, and I guess everyone that joined today would have taken hopefully a nugget out of today's live stream to to move forward in terms of about spend management specifically. So thank you everyone for joining me today, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Bye bye.